Right, podcast chant?
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay, let's go. Podcast. Hi, I'm Tom, founder of A Work in Progress, and welcome to the Show Far Podcast, a podcast for performance nerds. I am joined by TPI Front of House Engineer of the Year, Anna Dahlin.
Hi.
Your crowning achievement of your career, becoming TPI Front of House Engineer of the Year.
Yes.
It's really fucking cool, actually, to finally do a podcast with you, because ever since we started, it's been a while since you were on the pod.
It's been a long coming. That's the expression.
No, it's been long coming, and actually, a lot of what inspires the philosophy of doing like Show Far podcast and being really open about what we do and like how we approach things. That's all inspired by like the conversations we had on tour together.
Yeah.
And it was the same with like the event factory reset we did.
Yeah.
Like
there's been a lot of.
It could be considered less than sober bitching that what we were doing.
Could be.
Be.
Some might say.
Or
other people could just call it an accurate analysis.
Or it could be healthy conversation that you need to have on tour. Debriefing.
Yeah.
Circling back.
Putting a pin in things and pulling it back out again.
So that's probably a good place to start. We met touring together.
Yes.
And you were doing the front of the house.
The front of the house, I did.
Oh, actually, when we first met, maybe you were on monitors.
Was I?
Because it was Coachella.
Yes, actually.
Coachella 2016.
Jesus, 15 I think it was.
Is it 15 even
I
earlier?
think it was 15.
That's a long time ago.
Because I think it was 16 that you and I did a gig together.
Oh, okay.
So 15. Yeah, I would actually like to correct the record and say I was actually playback tech and monitors.
Oh, really?
When we first met.
Oh.
I mean, because I did actually carry the laptops that had Ableton on them.
And plug them in and press play.
Yes.
It's playback, yeah.
I was going to say, right?
It's like when you're in, like, it's so common when you're a playback tech, the band will come in and be like, oh yeah, here's the stems for the new song, and can you help us figure out what we're going to play? And then you go and do all of that.
So you were actually an MD.
That's music direction, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the MD rocks up and goes, great job, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Just puts an invoice down and leaves. You're like, what?
Yeah, there's definitely mission creep in these roles.
It's all the same thing, ultimately. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so playback and that was on Nero years ago. We should probably drop some names first to give you credibility, because that's your credibility in the live music industry is all about the number of names that you can drop upon the floor.
Pretty
much. Something down, and you can drop them just here.
Put a little basket on the floor and then just go. Yeah, Nero. That was my first proper touring.
Yeah.
You and I worked on Gorgon City.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, your mind goes blank when you have to think about it. I've done a lot of Becky Hill. Right now I'm doing Joe. I've also, like you, been in and out on Clean Bandit.
Yeah.
What else? Freya Riding, Zara Larsson.
Oh yeah.
I've done a bit of Nile Rodgers and Chic. God, it's hard when you have to think about it. Yeah. James Bay, I did a little bit of.
Did you forget because it was traumatic, or are you forgetting because there's just so many amazing names?
I'm just old.
That's what happens to your memory when you're old.
It just goes.
All those memories, they float away. That's why I have to take pictures.
And some of them, I don't know if they're true anymore.
So predominantly what you do now is front of house?
Yes, predominantly, yes. It is. Not. I wouldn't say I love doing it. Actually, that came out all wrong. I love doing it, but I am not adverse to doing monitors sometimes. Because they're two very different jobs, yet similar, and I really enjoy doing both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just different vibes.
Different vibes. Very different vibes.
Yeah. And you like Nero was your first kind of touring show, right?
Yes. Yeah. That was first, and that was sort of after doing acoustics at uni and then realizing that all studios were closing, every single one in the whole world. So I ended up in IT instead, and then worked in venues around London in the evening. And like I think many people do, crossed paths with people that were touring.
Yeah.
And got asked, would you be free? And I wasn't, because I had a job, but I quit my job and thought I'll work for 3 months with this band and then I'll be unemployed and hungry. But that it kind of worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was Nero. Yes. That was my first proper going off and traveling and touring.
Sick.
Yeah. And then, like, a lot of the time, one thing led to another. This is how this works, isn't it? You meet somebody who needs somebody and who knew you, who thought that worked well, and then...
The common story is that there's one gig that's a bit of a tipping point.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know, you do that and then you meet kind of the right people who then... There's a chance that, oh, right, they actually need someone to do this thing, and then you go and do that thing, and then that thing leads to another thing.
And also that thing which, for better or for worse, I think is true in what we do, that... you need that at least one gig that gives you credibility.
Yeah.
To show that you know what's going on and you were not a psychopath. And you know.
And that's tough, man, because not everybody wants experience.
Yeah.
But they also, you know, don't want to pay for experience, and experience is busy.
Yeah.
Like, people who are good generally aren't available because they're doing stuff.
Very true. Very true.
So it means that, you know, we find it quite tricky when we're trying to, you know, staff gigs, and, you know, someone who's very talented comes through, and then it's really tricky for us to get them onto bigger clients because they don't have that CV yet.
Yeah.
They don't quite yet have the, you know, very impressive name, which for every other person would be easy then to put them on.
Yeah.
You know, you're constantly trying to fight this fucking uphill battle of like, right, I just need you to do one big gig. Once you've done that one big gig, this is going to be a piece of piss.
And I was going to say as well, once they've done that one gig, do you also find that then they fucking disappear off and do lots of, because they've done that
100%.
gig, and suddenly you completely lose them.
Yeah,
you can never use them again.
No. It's fucking bullshit. Disloyal wankers.
I'd like to attack the industry, not the person.
So yeah, we're talking about good source. This is an episode about good source. This is an episode about getting your sounds right as they come from the stage and go to the PA and hit people like you, who need to then wrangle them in the ever-changing environment of touring sound and have a consistent and good mix.
Shoehorn them into a PA and make them work in a reverberant space that changes on a daily basis.
Yeah, because it's very different. It's something that we talk with clients about a lot, is the big difference between your mix in a studio, like our studio, where it's like nice and treated, very dry. It's very clear what you're listening to, and then kind of the daily thing for you is you take that and you put it through a reverb bus at like 75. Put it through a reverb plugin at 75% wet.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what it is.
And try and get clarity out of that.
Yeah. And then everybody's like, I can't hear the vocal. And you're like, oh no. We're working on it. I'm a TPI award-winning front of house engineer.
Yes.
I'm working on it.
Yes.
I just need to sidechain the room reverb. So I guess the best way to approach how to create good source is talking about like components of a front of house mix.
Yes.
Which there are lots of components of a front of house mix, I suppose, much like your listening medium that could change regularly if you're not touring a PA or going through arenas or stuff like that. And we, like every podcast, had a couple of little chats beforehand. I mean, well, I planned for it to be a podcast record, but we're very good at just doing 4 hours of bullshit. And I think we did start drinking whiskey halfway through as well, so it definitely wasn't sober either. It's just like, fuck the podcast.
The podcast will sort itself out.
Let's talk about how to make music sound good in a venue and drink whiskey instead. Actually, do you want one? And you described it in a really good way, I think, which was painting with primary colours.
Yeah, I think.
About creating simple sounds.
Yeah, because you have to... I think many people know already, right? I seem to come across people knowing that somehow live you very rarely use, for instance, additive EQ. You tend to just take things out because you need to make room for things.
Yeah.
And the way I usually try and explain it to people is, like you just said, you can sit in a dry treated studio with a nice little tight speaker setup and everything sounds great. But you have to bear in mind that once we walk into one of these venues, there's going to be a whole audience that goes pretty much sound like white noise and make noise. Yeah. And there's going to be a room that's going to pick some modes that is going to decide to emphasize, and it's going to have a reverb in it. We also have a PA that a line array with subs act very differently to a nice little left-right speaker setup in the studio or your headphones. All those things will contribute to your live experience being very different. I don't know if I would call it busier, but there's a lot more going on. And I think we also discussed this thing where to give the impression of, for an audience to feel like they've heard the album live, I think you have to do it differently live, because you have to sort of select what you're emphasizing and the fullness of an album, again, depending on the genre of music and the production, might not really have the same effect live, because can I say maybe that it's too much. It's you're giving people too much to listen to be able to focus on the bits that. And I think it's more prone to happen now that a lot of stuff is electronic and we can have a lot of stuff on track, which means the sky's the limit to how much you can have going on. Yeah. And you tend to sort of fill the frequency spectra in every aspect of it, which doesn't necessarily give elements in your mix space to breathe and to resonate properly.
I suppose... going back to that analogy of it's like taking your master bus and putting it through a reverb plugin. Yeah. If you think about how that reverb plugin's reacting to every single element that you've put into that mix, the more elements that are reverbing, kind of the more reverb, which feels like a stupid thing to say, but also it's like that's exactly what's going on.
But it is. If we go back to the analogy of colours, it's the same thing. If you add all the colours to the bucket, it just goes grey. Right? Yeah. We also did talk about layering. People can have an idea that layering is going to make your sound fatter, bigger, which sure might work sometimes, but sometimes you just want that one clear source.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what it is you're trying to achieve with, that layer. It's a very studio technique, right? Where if you're missing I don't know, like width or some sort of tonality, it's like, cool, let's add that with another thing. And then when you come to the mix stage, quite often what you find is people doing quite drastic EQ to then fit that into one space. Like even from, like a prepping tracks perspective, you are still always normally better with one really good sound than lots of medium sounds that become one good sound, or ultimately that's going to turn into one stereo stem anyway. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I think this is where we use the mathematical analogy of if you have two half good sounds, then what happens when you add them is you actually multiply. So 0.5 times 0.5 becomes 0.25, so you actually ended up with something worse rather than sticking with just the one 0.5, or preferably dialing that up to a 1 and make it really good.
Yeah, and it's tricky because it takes a lot of time, and you've got to choose the right instruments, and you've got to have people who play them well, and the voicings of what everything is doing together has to be more musical. And I think sometimes we can forget that it's still music, and rather than changing the tonality of a sound, maybe you should be changing the note that it's playing, because that against the rest of the voicing of the rest of the band and the playback, maybe that's where it sounds shit, rather than just trying to overthink, but we need to cut here and add some overdrive and then a bit of chorus and a bit of reverb, and it's like, it's easy to just add layers and layers of bollocks, but like, is it actually like good in the first place?
Is the source good?
Well, is it good source? Exactly, which is like the whole point of, I guess, what we're trying to say is like, just get, if that's good, then it's good and you don't need to worry. So like, taking a musical approach to all of that kind of stuff to make sure that it sits in the music as opposed to
And I also think the later in the chain that you try and fix something, the harder it is and the more time you need to spend doing it. If you can, for instance, just to give a blatant example, if you have a kick drum and it sounds great, you get your mic positioning in a good place, you don't need to do that much to it.
Yeah.
If you've got a shit kick drum, you need to work hard, and it's going to take time, and you might need tools to fix that.
That's a real tricky thing about that. It's like a real reality of touring, right? Where it's very common that you're going to be using hire kits.
Yeah.
And hire drum kits are very rarely good.
Yeah.
They're very frequently problematic, and it may be the kit that you asked for in the advance, but then it turns up and loads of stuff's just been subbed.
Yeah.
Because stuff just gets subbed. Like, it's one of the tricky things with touring, and it's one of the tricky things when you're spending all this time putting together these shows, if you don't account for the fact that we need to be able to do this without the correct components, and it still be as good. I feel like that's quite an underrated approach to a show that people forget about, is like, this won't be ideal.
Yeah.
In any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
There is no chance this will be ideal.
And also, even if in 85% of your shows it is going to be ideal because you got your own truck. You do know, I had this conversation with somebody else just the other day. You do know that, or you should always account for, there's going to be 15% of the gigs that are going to be last minute corporate show in Shanghai. You're not going to have your gear. And how does it work then? Can we still recreate this, or have we sort of painted ourselves into a corner where we can only do this show with all of this? Yeah,
absolutely. I suppose like a good thing to talk about is like the relationship of like playback with other parts.
Yeah.
Well, everybody always wants to know about how to approach playback. It's a very popular subject that people ask us a lot whenever we do, we did that playback workshop at Factory Reset, and I didn't realize it was going to be so incredibly fucking popular. And there's also an element across different people who deal with those tracks, where they'll have different ways of preparing stuff and different approaches, and nobody ever can really settle on, how should we group things? How should we split things? How should we approach, putting a player playing something against putting something into the box and that coming down the tracks lines. So I think that's something really valuable to talk about, is kind of how you like to approach that, how you like to be delivered that. Because in the last season of Showfile Podcast, we spent a lot of time pretty much, because we did like one episode on each instrument.
Yeah. And
in each of those, we did talk about how we'd approach like drums versus track, and like vocals versus track, guitars versus track, synths versus track. So kind of your main components that you'll find on a show.
Yeah.
But obviously lots of people think that there's like a dark art to it, and they start going, oh, well, we need 64 channels of track or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, you're already laughing because it's like, that can probably be more problems than it's worth. So when you're looking for those tracks groups, I just want to like dig into where you want to start with that, the kind of things you're looking for, like how are you approaching those, I guess is maybe a better question to ask.
I think if I'm totally egocentric and I talk from a front of house point of view, one good thing to mention that I don't think people understand always is, or know, it's not that they need to understand, but why would they know, is that we often don't send all our audio content to left, right, sub and fill. It's quite common to separate out what you send to the subs, to send the subs a very clean signal, because even with high passes on instruments and vocals, you could, as the theory goes, you could still, because a high pass will still let something through, and you can create a let's call it an unclean signal for the subs. So for that reason, for instance, I would always want the kick drum to be separate from all other drums if that's possible.
Yeah.
So I can choose for the other drums not to go to the sub.
Right, yeah.
Same with bass. anything that's a sub sound, just to make sure that they can be singled out to go to the subs.
And so in that situation, basically what you're saying is that kick and that, sub track channel, that's going to go only to the subwoofers.
No, it's
not even touch the
the
tops.
kick, because it will still have high-end content, so it will go to left, right, and sub. But what I'm saying is, if I then have like a drum and bass beat of snares and other percussive stuff, I don't want them to go to the sub. I want them just in the left and right. So to have that separation, so I can select what goes to subs, or maybe I should rephrase it: select for things not to hit the subs, to keep the subs as clean as possible. I think that's one common thing that I think a lot of people want and request. Another thing that is becoming more common is that you have, let's say, BVs on track, and you might have some runs of the lead vocal because the singer is either doing something else at the same time or just need to rest. And that also needs to be separate, because in order to match that as live, let's call it an as live, it's not strictly speaking, it could be vocal, just a pre-record. You kind of need to work on that to match the live vocal.
Yeah, because a studio produced vocal is a very different approach to a live vocal. And you can hear it on every single record, the fucking high shelf. Everybody calls air, but like it's a big fucking aggressive high shelf that gets you that kind of sound.
Exactly, and I've had MDs and musicians see the EQ on my console and they're shocked, because obviously in a studio you can record a vocal with a large diaphragm mic, beautiful, it's silent, you can pick up all the top end in the world, you can compress that top end, it can sound so present. Then you go to live and we don't even have the ability to use that mic. We're using a much dumber mic, which is going to basically what you'll end up doing if you don't treat the BVs and any vocal that's on track by often taking quite a lot of top off, you're inadvertently going to make your live vocal sound really dull.
Yeah, right.
Because in contrast to the recorded vocals, that live vocal is going to sound like it's missing all the top end. So you need to match, and you can't change the live vocal. It is what it is. So what you have to do is you have to match any vocal that's on track. Which is also why it's so valuable to have that separate, so you don't have to. Sometimes you can get BVs coming down with the rest of the music, and then you can't do anything because you need that top end in the track, the rest of the content. So that those are a few things that are really, really valuable if you get them separate, singled out at front of house: kick drums, bass, any kind of vocal, so that you can make that vocal, be it BVs or an as live or anything else. Obviously, sorry, I shouldn't say as live. That's a totally different thing, but a pre-recorded vocal. So you can treat them to make sure they enhance your live vocal rather than shade it.
I think that's like quite a good point as well, because I suppose even in that process, when like we're preparing those tracks, still presenting as much of it as possible, like not doing that cut in the box, because that's going to be a per room, per microphone. Like, have you turned up and you asked for this RF mic, they've sent you this capsule, like whatever, you're going to need to be able to have that flexibility. So the resolution from our side needs to be as high as possible. And as consistent as possible.
And also, because like you say, is a very valid point, it's on a room basis. It's on what I can do with a live vocal, because sometimes maybe I can make it quite bright because maybe you're outdoors in a field. And at that point, it's all about giving me the ability to match the two, which can be, like you say, varying on a day-to-day basis. So there's no, I wouldn't be in the box in Ableton cutting anything. I think it's just more for people to be aware that this happens.
Right.
I don't think it's anything for people to change. It's just that don't be shocked if you go to your front of house engineer and you see that on your track BVs. You're like, what is going on there?
Well, but also rather than just looking at it, like listen, like if it sounds decent,
does it sound exactly?
Don't worry about that so much. Like, but if it does sound wrong, and you go and you're like, hang on a second.
I think
because to be fair, I have had shows where I've wondered where the fuck all the low end is. And I've gone to the desk and there's a fucking low shelf on the master bus. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, what is wrong? Because people do this kind of stuff sometimes. And, you know, it's only, I guess there's like an approach of only really digging into how people are EQing things when something doesn't sound correct or it doesn't sound as was intended with the vision of what you were trying to create with stuff. Because also, like, if you wanted it to be weird and dull and not sound right, then maybe we do need to just bandpass the fuck out of everything.
Yeah.
And it'll sound like pokey and shit, but maybe that's the vision.
Yeah.
You know, I heard recently that the McGee lot throw the master bus through some fucking weird phaser or some shit. I was just like, that just sounds ridiculous to me. But, you know, look, if that's the vibe,
again,
if that gets the sound,
good,
if that's how you want to promote, if that's how you want to present it, then absolutely do it. Obviously, there's an amount of backing tracks with stuff, and the job that will kind of, I think that's very similar that we have to do, as well as front of house engineers have to do, is like balancing that track, the backing tracks, with you know, the source that comes from the players and the instruments on stage. And one of the things that I'm a big fan of anyway, and it's probably influenced by you, is using single source for parts. So obviously it all depends on the part, but, you know, if we're going to have drums, like, choose an acoustic kick or an electric kick and get that right. Everything else can fuck off. Like, I know that it's quite popular to do the layering stuff.
Yeah.
I know that drummers love to do it. But ultimately...
And why do they love it?
I mean, there's a lot of things I don't understand about musicians.
Okay. Yeah, the
As a fabulously incompetent music director. But I do think that you rarely get a good sound by having many different components of that sound. So, you know, like one, like you said earlier, like you get one kick drum, get that one kick drum to sound really, really great. That's just going to sound good for the gig. And, you know, when you then approach maybe having an electronic kick drum instead, like, it is very common with music nowadays to have a different sample per song.
Yeah.
Which, I guess, from our perspective as music directors, that's the source material, right? That I've been given. And so that's correct to the record. And it does sit in the mix when you're sitting in a studio. But then when you actually get to a stage, I can see how having a kick drum per song is actually kind of problematic.
It's fucking up things for your front of house engineer.
Turns out Anna Dahlin hates kick drums. But you know, and it's only kind of really having conversations properly with you where I've kind of realised, like, actually, if you have 20 kick drums, you should really sound check all 20 kick drums. Yeah. Really.
And
because
realistically, you're never going to have time to do that.
Absolutely fucking not.
Often you're not. I think it's, I hope I'm not ruining the continuity of the podcast if I refer back to something we in real time said before about layering, this whole thing of, sure, you can I think what it is you can layer a bunch of stuff, but you have to then be prepared for the extra time it's going to take to make all these things sit together.
Yeah.
For instance, when it comes to a kick drum, like you say, it's so common that we have an acoustic kick drum, which means we have two signals from that, a kick in and a kick out mic. And then we have very often a trigger that triggers a sample as well. And add to that on big subs, it's a whole different ball game, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. And a big aspect, I think anyway, of live is that you want to feel that kick drum. And that takes a bit of tweaking to find that point where that particular kick drum is going to resonate, and add to that you've got room modes, and how if you move that frequency around, some kick drums might totally disappear in that room, or some might just shake people's teeth. It's so again, you're looking at so many different parameters all of a sudden. If you've got a kick in, kick out, and a snare, kick in, kick out, and a kick sample, to find the transient where that kick is hitting and lining them up, but you can't do that for every song.
Yeah.
And also we come into a venue and we mark up where the mics are, but they're going to move a little bit. So it's not.
Oh, they're going to move mid-gig, 100%. Once you've got human beings doing stuff,
they're going to move from day to day, but not only day to day. They're going to probably move a little bit during the gig. You end up chasing your tail there, and you have to then look at it, going, what are we gaining by having 3 kick drums? And also, like I often have wished that music directors would come out into the venue.
Yeah.
Because I think often what you hear on your ears from that kick sample is not at all what it's going to sound like out front, because those subs are going to emphasize frequencies you didn't know existed in that sample, because you've never heard it like that.
Well, also listening at 100 dB is different to listening at whatever dB a studio. I don't even know what a dB as a studio is, because I'm just like, it's much quieter and comfortable. Like, fucking cares what that actually
and you don't
is.
Have
I know that
roof.
a venue's much louder. And you don't have a roof yet.
You don't have a roof that sings along, nor do you have some weird flooring covering up an ice rink.
Yeah.
Or like all those things. So again, I'm not going to say that you can't layer things. Of course you can, but just be aware that in a live scenario, particularly something like a kick drum is such a good example, because there's going to be so many parameters that come into it, whether it's the subs, the venue, you know, how that acoustic kick is lined up with your samples. So you have to ask yourself, what are we gaining, or are we just making problems?
Yeah, totally. And I suppose in a slightly more simplistic way, there's things like you wouldn't have someone playing a bass line over a track bass line.
No.
Like,
you wouldn't.
It's obvious that would just be shit.
Yeah.
You know, that's never going to sound very good. But also, I think if you had a guitar part that sits with lots of guitar parts, but you only have a single guitarist, we are probably going to layer real guitar with track guitar, because like we just need the extra, I don't know, arpeggios or whatever the fuck the guitar part's playing. Maybe it's a rhythm part and you're playing a lead over the top or anything like that. But then with like, you know, synth pads is quite a common one where you can, I mean, also correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because I've always assumed like, well, we can just get away with just pads on pads, right? No fucking worries.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think I'm right in saying it's easier to deal with multiple sources the higher up you come in the frequency spectra.
Right.
Because if you have some high parts on guitar and you've got a few of them, they might still be audible as discrete parts.
Right.
But it gets harder, like you say, if you try and double up a bass line.
Oh, it's just always going to be shit.
Yeah,
just have one bass line coming from one place.
It's just going to be messy.
Yeah, choose bass guitar or choose synth bass and just be done with it.
Yeah. But it is back to that mixing all the colors at once, because you sometimes get, you know, we have a live section of something and that live section also exists in some version on track. And then we add a little bit more because it's now the live show, so let's add a little bit more of that live section on track to make sure it's definitely there.
Yeah. And
that, again, I think it takes a lot of work to make that work, as opposed to just stick with that live section. We can make that work. It is, I think, very back to the primary colors. The give things space to breathe, because we don't have the frequency spectra is not infinite, even though I guess maybe mathematically it is, but not for human ears. Like, be gentle.
But from a conceptual standpoint,
what?
How many things can we fit in through the mix
before the tree falls in the woods?
And if you high pass it, can anybody hear it?
If it hasn't fallen.
If we low pass it, does it get to the subs?
I'm sure there is an analogy in there with can't see the woods for the trees, though, of like
trees of the woods of the trees.
Sometimes you want it to be just woods, and then sure, layer away. But if you want anyone to see any of the trees, less woods.
That'll be the first reel that we post of this. So when talking about like getting that source right and making sure there's not too many layers, and I mean, I think especially when you get to more like analog source, and by analog source, I guess I'm analog source for fuck's sake. When we're getting to like more analog source, like talking about microphones and things like that, that I guess starts to include even things like stage positioning, which can frequently become like a contentious issue on stages, because, you know, creative will have their design that they've done. Audio will have strong opinions on where to put microphones and where to put players, and there is this like, sound is fucking sound, right? Like, stages can be very fucking loud. Like, the drummer is one noisy bastard, you know, especially if they've got, I don't know, big array of cymbals, and you know, maybe they're the kind of player that hits really, really hard. A nice metal snare. So that does impact everything that I mean, like, if you've got drums and a vocal mic, you kind of can't fix that.
No, not really. There's always a limit to what you can do, and I think we live in a world where, isn't it something like Elvis Costello is so much louder than you actually think? That generation came up learning to sing in pubs on top of shit BAs.
Right.
And have, I think, a completely different singing technique. Now we have a lot of very quiet singers.
Yeah.
And we can deal with that. We can do that. But it requires a bit of extra thought going into, you know, if you have 7 open vocal mics on stage for singers who are all quite breathy, quite quiet, you kind of have to work out how you deal with the drum kit in that scenario, because before you know it, every single reverb that you've set up for your beautiful BVs and your lead singer or lead singers will have more snare in it than it has vocal, and all of a sudden you have the option of, I'm exaggerating slightly, but you can't use reverb on your singers because suddenly the snare is in a cathedral.
Big 80s reverb snare. Thanks for the vocal mics. And then all of a sudden we're putting more fucking BVs on track because, like, nobody can hear the fucking BVs.
Exactly, and we're back in that loop of going, we can't really use the BVs, so we need them.
And I suppose that then happens with guitars and stuff as well, and that can start becoming quite problematic if you're using things like autotune. You know, that autotune is always reacting to melodic information, so you add more melody to that mic, in whatever that melody is, it's going to go, all right, off it fucks over here, off it fucks I'll fucking tune ya. Which, you know, it's just going to impact on your intended result, I guess.
Yeah, and I think what it means is you just need to be careful, and that's why I think it's useful to have these conversations way before you get to the point where, you know, you get into production rehearsals and creatives have already laid out the stage, and you kind of go, well, that's actually the BVs lined up right in front of the snare drum. That's going to be an issue, because there are things we can do with choosing the right mics, having the right tools in the shape of sort of primary source enhancers, etc. Yeah. But there is also a limit to what can be done. And again, it's on topic, on point for this conversation of thinking about your source. Yeah. Because it is actually back to clean up that source so we can do as much as we can with it. So we can expand, compress, do all those things that will make it A, usable, B, good. Yeah. And a lot can be, again, we're back to if you can get in early in the chain, i.e. have a say on where people go on stage, so you don't have the quietest sources in front of the loudest source, then a lot of that work is done for you. Yeah. And I think it's a valid point as well. More and more people are using autotune, and that does become tricky if you can't separate that source out properly. And
it's designed for studio vocals. It's designed for vocals recorded in a room like this, where there's lots of treatment everywhere, so that all you hear is that vocal. And I suppose for us as the people putting this together, that you're then eventually going to have to make it sound nice on the stage. I think we sometimes take it for granted how easy it is to record studio perfect source nowadays. And we do a lot of prep in quiet rooms to, partly to save our ears and partly for, many other reasons. And that is like, it's very quick and easy to forget that when we get to that stage, it is just a big box of noise and all these things that we thought in the studio were going to be easy and fantastic. This is a very, very different environment, and that's like going to significantly change what it is that you thought you'd achieve with that.
And I think you're hitting another one of my, I find it quite interesting, this thing of how to get an audience to leave feeling like they've experienced the album the way they experienced the album. I think you often have to rethink things because I think we've discussed a lot that people sometimes forget that there's a visual element now that people don't have when they listen to headphones on their way to work or whatever it is, because all of a sudden you see the drummer hitting the drums, you see the trombone player coming out and playing their part, and I think you need to mix to the visuals to a certain extent, to the point where I can get quite sensitive sometimes when people ask for the left-right recording, because I kind of go, it's not necessarily going to make sense without the visuals here, because there are bits that there are guitar solos that are probably much louder than they would be on your recording, because the guitarist has a spot on them and has their foot on the wedge on stage. It kind of needs to match what the visuals give you. I think you can achieve the same, for lack of a better word, vibe, impression, experience by doing things differently. For instance, like we were talking about, it's quite common to have very quiet singers these days. And I've had the conversation with a few singers where they almost go to whispered voice. And I am quite convinced that just their singing technique, the way they portray themselves at that point, means the impression is still there. You don't need to go to whisper, where basically, and it's a lot of it is to do with their experience as well as the audience, because at that point they'll have more audience in their IEMs than they have themselves, because they're so quiet in their microphone. And I guess I'm trying to say, but the important thing is obviously the impression, and you can give people the same impression with different routes. You can get there in a different way. I think a lot of it is to do with singing technique and how you sort of present that particular section, which can give that soft, quiet impression, even though it isn't. And I think it's those kind of modifications that we need to do live, because studio just doesn't translate.
Well, you can do a lot of patching and smoke and mirrors in studio that, retracking, and, you can expand much harder than you can on a stage. You can compress much harder than you can on a stage. You can chop out all the little bits in between, so we've only got, the words that we need for the take. Whereas once you get onto a stage, that's the take. Yeah. The one that you're doing now. That's it. You don't get to redo it. But also, people don't generally get to rewatch it. The tricky thing, I think it's like a really important thing to talk about, though, because as much as people are kind of like finding these identities that are maybe much quieter in the way that they present, like vocals and stuff like that. And like you're saying about front of house mixes, where it's maybe not as nice a listening experience as you'd expect, because like you're reacting to the visual, you're reacting to the room. There's like you'll be mixing the bass differently room to room, and it may seem loud on your fucking Bluetooth headphones. But equally with that, like when artists' careers are dictated by social media, and that's a way that they're connecting with their fan base, it's almost more important to be able to get that right, to translate across 100 different systems and 100 different fucking smartphones, because quality content that engages a fan encourages that fan to buy another ticket.
Yeah.
And we're all fucked if fans don't buy tickets.
Yeah,
and that's already quite a dangerous place that we're in at the moment anyway.
Yeah.
I also think that that's quite a challenging concept for all of us, because as a music director, why would I arrange songs to be social media friendly?
Yeah.
Though we're kind of almost forced to be conscious of that maybe being a thing. And we've actually, for better or for worse, we've had a lot of success in putting shows together with people where we do say blatantly, let's look for what the content moment of the show. What's the part of the show where we're encouraging people to take their phone out, post it on their social media and go, oh my fucking God, look at this. And we had an artist last year where those conversations turned into him doing a backflip in the middle of the gig. And he spent his month leading up to the show learning how to backflip and put it on his socials. And it became like this thing. And then he did it. And we had this like fabulous horn arrangement around it that Lewis, one of our collaborators, did. And, Sam was MDing that show. And it was, turned it into a whole thing. And like, equally there, that front of house mix needs to translate on that phone speaker to capture what we're trying to achieve in that moment, which I'm equally as aware is a really shitty thing to expect of people like you. Do you know what I mean? Like, hey, can you mix it in a PA and it sound good in a phone speaker? And it's a phenomenon that started in I noticed it starting in 2018 when I was on tour, where artists would watch back the social media and go, the front of house mix isn't very good. And the front of house engineer would obviously get very fucking angry. Because they're like, what the fuck do you mean? Of course it sounds shit on a phone fucking speaker. It's gone, all of your shit patches and your shit playback down into that shit line system to my shit desk out of this shit PA. And I'm jet lagged. I flew in day of show, and then it came out that shit PA, went into someone's shit phone that cost £100.
And also,
into a meta server.
Where's your iPhone subs? I'm just exactly. Where are they? Yeah. Did you forget them?
The outrage is completely reasonable. Completely fucking reasonable. But equally, this is something important that I guess we all kind of need to figure out somehow of how we achieve all of this. Yeah, and I
think it affects everybody, because half the time I'm standing next to LDs who throughout the entire show have their iPhone on a tripod so that they can constantly see what the show looks like through a phone camera. Right. And it is a really interesting question. What do we do? And I feel like you and I have talked about this before, because there's going to be a point where things pull in different directions. What's going to be good for Instagram camera and iPhone camera and iPhone microphone, and what's going to be a good experience in the live room where everybody who paid for a ticket happened to be. The other thing that pulls in two directions is what's going to be good source material for a live show, and sometimes that contradicts what might be a good source for broadcast. Yeah. To the point where I've spoken to some people, it sounds insane, but should we maybe we mentioned kick drums before. Yeah. Should we have one kick drum channel, which is all those hundreds of different samples we want to use, and that goes to broadcast? And for live, we picked up what we know works live and hits people in the chest properly. Yeah. And we use that live. Yeah. At what point do we start doing different things? And obviously, in the example you give where you're in the room, I can't do one front of house mix for the iPhone microphone and one for the people's ears. That's
please put your iPhone near this speaker and listen to this speaker.
Physically impossible. But yes, what wins out? If I'm not saying they're always contradictory. Sometimes they work. Sometimes it works well in all the mediums. Yeah. But when it doesn't, what do we prioritize?
Totally. I mean, you're making a good case for 64-channel playback rigs, which I don't like, but not very keen on that. But I mean, you are right. And it really depends on what the goal is. And I think a lot of this stuff will often be dictated by money. Because like, are you going to double the time so we can prep for broadcast as well as show? You know, what's your priority? What's your artistic intent in terms of what are you trying to say with your show? You know, are you specifically going after being social media friendly or broadcast friendly or whatever, or are you trying to be specifically live friendly, which I don't think either of those are better or worse. I think it depends on what your message is as an artist and what your album fucking means. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and isn't it also another one, like we said before, that you have to bear in mind that we're not always going to have our truck with all of our stuff. There might be, we might need to design this so we can do a fly show.
Yeah.
In the same sense, maybe that's another parameter that we need to think about now, going, maybe we can't go too extreme with certain things because that's not going to look or sound good on Instagram and it's not going to look or sound good on broadcast. Because I'm sure we've all been there. Like I said, it goes for lighting as well, where the LD is tearing their hair out because today's getting filmed. So the general instruction is that the light on stage need to be brighter, which looks shit in the venue. It's not at all what they designed, but maybe that's a parameter we need to bear in mind, finding that middle ground, something that's going to work in all environments, rather than then have that thing where, oh shit, it's going to be broadcast on BBC now and it's going to live on the internet forever. Shit.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Because most of the time when you're preparing these kinds of creative projects, when your medium is something that someone can listen to more than once, you have to take a lot more care in the perfection of it, especially in a world where I say it on every fucking podcast that, like, I said it throughout Factory Reset, and I will continue to say it forever, like, modern music is infinitely perfect and infinitely complex. So, like, even though it seems simple,
I've never heard you say this before.
Really?
And I've listened to the podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, but it is incredibly perfect. It's unnaturally perfect.
Yeah.
And even the stuff that's kind of supposed to be loose and vibey,
it's not.
Is incredibly perfect. Still, much more perfect than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So that's what people expect. When they listen to it or when they look at a picture of these people and, listen to them perform their instrument, they hear something that is comped within an inch of its life and tuned, whether that's guitar or vocal or bass or anything. And I think when you're then presenting these kinds of things that we work on artists with to an audience that they can then watch back, there's going to be a lot of imperfection that maybe is uncomfortable to both the artist and the listener. And we need to find like a middle ground in that of like how we can still do something that's really, really great, but like owns that imperfection. And I don't think it's just letting it be a bit shit, because sometimes there's the thing that people say, sounds really live.
I was going to say there's a limit to how often you can say, well, proves it's live though, doesn't it?
Proves it's live, yeah. And it's like, well, you just fucked up. You just learn the part. Is that controversial to say? Like, am I going to turn into a massive cunt by saying that? Because like, finally got there. We finally did it. But finally said cunt.
But there is also cunt. Sorry, it just washed over me. I'm not.
You didn't even realise.
I didn't even realise.
I was just like, you've always got money on how long it's going to take me to say cunt.
Yeah, but it just doesn't register.
It just doesn't surprise you at all. Completely derailed this.
Just like, oh, you said cunt.
Cool. Oh, what a cunt. Oh, God.
No, but there is good. But there is good proof it's live and bad, because that's also really bad comment, proves it's live. Because, for instance, if you've got an autotune that's glitching, that proves it's live.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
But it's also revealing you're using autotune, which maybe, depending on the gig, you don't really want. So it's I don't know, I feel like we've gone out on thin ice now. I'm not sure where we're going with this, but it is that it is a very interesting sort of this thing where we're beginning to cater for so many different different kinds of audiences, be it online or broadcast, and I think because, like you said, the source has proliferated and the sky's the limit with what the source can be these days. It's also made it maybe harder to reproduce consistently in all the different channels that we're trying to push it down: broadcast, Instagram, live.
I think that's probably a good approach. That's probably a good way to look at it. Sorry.
And it's not a bad thing. It's just something to bear in mind. And I think stuff like that is good to bear in mind when you make decisions early on in designing your show. If this is going to be something that, for instance, I'm always terrified when we have a show where some bits, again, vocal saving bits for the lead vocalist are on track, be it a really high part somewhere. Because that's all very fine for us that have been working on this and can match it and know when it happens. But what the fuck is happening in broadcast?
Yeah.
Is that going to be a complete reveal?
And broadcast
or is it going to be fine?
Yeah, broadcast trucks are tricky places to work as well, because you have an engineer whose ears are exhausted because they've been mixing all day. And they've had a million of you coming in to talk to them. And they turn off, they switch off, they stop listening. And I don't judge them for that, I don't think. Because when I've been programming all day with an artist, my ears are fucking exhausted as well. And that's just listening to one artist on near field monitors in a nice studio at a good volume.
With a nice coffee.
With a nice coffee.
And a lovely dog.
And this poor bastard is on site at insert shit festival name here, and they've listened to band after band after band after band, and some of them have been good, some of them have been bad, and it is what it is. And you've got management saying it doesn't sound like the record, and they're like, it sounds live.
That proves it's live though.
Why should we be why the fuck are we why do we have to prove that things are live? I feel like that's so irresponsible in the way that we're putting a show together, that you're smoke and mirroring so much that rather than saying there's smoke and mirrors, we're saying, but we need to prove that we're performing it.
Is this like the atheist argument that I don't have to prove that God doesn't exist? You prove he does exist. We don't have to prove it's live.
I didn't expect you to come back with that.
You prove it's not live.
I don't know. I think there's a mindset in that is maybe more problematic than constructive. I can see what people are trying to do, but we shouldn't be justifying the shows. They should be great shows.
Yeah, and also
regardless of everything else.
Are we not also in the kind of world where, again, you can do anything you like? If people don't like it, don't come to the show.
Yeah.
If you're expecting a 4-piece band of drums, bass, guitar, and a vocal and nothing else, go to a show like that.
I think maybe the problem that I have now that we're kind of talking about it a bit more is having to prove that it's live loses sight of the vision. It loses sight of the narrative. It loses sight of the art form. I think that immediately gets lost in proof of performance, which is really sad, because there's so much more that you can bring to all of this, and however that then translates to front of house or iPhone or whatever. If you can communicate the message that artist is trying to communicate and what it is that they're trying to emote in that moment, right? Whether that's euphoria or sadness or happiness, whatever the fuck it is they're trying to do, if you can communicate that, the rest of it's totally fucking arbitrary. And I guess that's why the record process, when it's being made, becomes incredibly complex, because the goal is to communicate the song. And if that means pitch perfect vocal, then it means pitch perfect vocal, and that's what we're going to go and do. And
also, let us face it, are we not at least part of the industry that created the expression smoke and mirrors? That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
We're creating that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's art, right? To create a vision and give people a feeling and an impression and an emotion. It's it's not the soulless like search of, well, mechanically, how was this done? Like that's
well, mechanically.
Well, mechanically, I'd like to know. Like that's not what you're meant to be looking for.
And I suppose that there's more scope then for the rough edges, if the rough edges help to emote.
Yeah.
What you're looking for. And I guess like it's all ultimately not digging into what this music is actually about and whether we're getting that across. It focuses too much on technical proficiency and perfection, which I think we start to miss the point by looking for that.
Yeah, and if you start with your vision of what you want your live performance to basically the feeling you want people to feel when they enjoy it, then am I selling out if I'm saying any means of getting there is fine?
I don't think that's selling out. I think that's practical. I think that's the way that we should be approaching it.
Because I'm kind of thinking about, let's say you have an artist who's kind of wanting to come across, not wanting to, but has a profile or an identity of being a bit lo-fi or a little bit. There are ways of doing that the old school way with maybe heaps of analog synths that are going to break when you look at them.
I've done those gigs. Have I done those gigs?
I know you have. I feel like I've been on those gigs with you.
It's just like, is it today or is it tomorrow that it all falls apart?
But I mean, and then you can argue that, well, we can give the audience the same impression of, let's call it lo-fi, using something else that works and doesn't break when you look at it.
Yeah.
But I guess you could then take that full circle and say, well, if the artist doesn't feel that they're playing their analog synths, they're not filled of the feeling of lo-fi and this vision. So I'm off on a bit of a cloud or tangent again, but I think it's really important to look at what is the impression you want to give with this show, and what's the easiest way of, not actually, it doesn't need to be easy, but how do we achieve that in the best possible way? And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I feel like I've been on so many gigs where there's a sort of a deep-seated need to do things in some sort of traditional way or in some sort of purist way almost, where I look at it and I think we can achieve so much more if we did this in a different way. And we could probably, because I think that's a lot of what we do is to emphasize that thing, that's what live performance is versus, a little video or something you listen to at home. Like I think I've said to you before, Nero was a perfect example where the live show, I think, was very different to going to hear their music on the dance floor or in your car. All of a sudden, which you never got in any other setting, you got a blonde, beautiful singer that would come out and sing. And it was also the fact that it was a select handful of songs.
Yeah.
And that needed to be emphasized because that's a moment to give that feeling of, oh my God, she's singing, she's here. And I think both visually and the way you mix that live needs to be a little bit different to create that emotion that you're trying to make. And I think that's why we have certain creative liberties when you're doing something live, to change things from, obviously, in discussion with the artist, but to sort of set what your end goal is, and achieving that might not be the straightest road that you thought it would be. It might be doing something slightly different.
That's a really good place to end this podcast, actually. It's a really good note to just like finish on.
Well, that we can be a little bit serious sometimes.
I just like looking at it like, did we cover game structure from the notes?
fuck no. No, but we have got. I think we've done fairly well, right? We've talked about the primary colours.
We'll just make more fucking podcasts. I know it's fucking bullshit, and I know that it can seem like we're getting serious when lots of this can be very silly, but I do genuinely. One of the things I want to start doing with a lot of these conversations is kind of openly saying that what we're doing is creating art, and we forget that.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
We're always forgetting about it. And, I'm also, I advise gigs to work in certain ways so that financially they can survive.
Yeah.
And doing anything by the money is a really good way to ruin great art. And I'm very conscious of that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I need you to go on tour for 5 years. Otherwise, your show will be shit.
Yeah.
It's bleak, isn't it?
Very bleak.
But the more shows you do, the better you're going to get at performing them, and the better you're going to be able to communicate all those ideas that you're trying to communicate.
Exactly.
So your show will be much better.
I think also you will learn a lot of the things we've been talking about, where you can take shortcuts, where you really can't.
Yeah.
How you can translate things. It's almost like a transfer function of some sort, where what your output, how you want that to be perceived. Yeah, there are multiple algorithms to put that through.
Okay. Thank you, Anna, for joining us
Tom.
On the Show podcast. I'll cut out the AI bit, don't worry. And that means that then the listeners will hear me say, I'll cut out the AI bit, don't worry. And they'll be like, what the fuck did she say?
What the fuck? Just leave that bit
Anna,
in.
darling, so you're going to be out on you're going to get on the next bus, and they're going to be like, what the fuck did you say about AI and music, Anna? It's incredibly controversial. I honestly can't believe that's the kind of thing you hold.
Controversial because they don't. It's the known unknown. They know I said something, but they don't know what it is.
Do you have anything? Where can people follow you on Instagram? I think it's time to go to the pub.
Yeah.
So,
have I got anything?
You're on Instagram. People should follow you on Instagram.
I think I'm Anna LDAHLIN, but I also have the one that is more gigging is Dahlin LTD.
Sick.
Legend, friend.